The 579A is the next generation Grinnell 1-bolt coupling. It features gaskets customized to specific coupling sizes for easy and consistent push-on installation. Because a smooth installation is a fast installation. Learn more at tyco-fire.com/579A.
Like and subscribe.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast. I've got Nick on from JCI and we're going to talk about a new product. Nick, how's it going today?
Pretty good, man. Just living up in Vegas right now, enjoying the AFSA conference.
So depressing. You're at the AFSA conference and expo down at it's at the Bellagio?
Yep, that's correct. That's correct.
We're recording on the Tuesday, the 18th right now. Up until Saturday night at about 11 o'clock, I was still looking at flights and hotels and possibly jumping on a flight at 5:30 the next morning. And then I had some kind of camera equipment problems that kind of were the final nail in the coffin as to why I wouldn't be there, but I'm super bummed out and will be there next year.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I loved it. I love the fact that we have the relationship we have, but I'd like to have some conversations in person with you in the future.
It's awesome to see people face to face. Like I don't think you weren't at the NFPA.
I was not. So I've actually just taken on a new role. Prior to the role that I'm in currently, I was a territory manager for Tyco, JCI, and the South Central region.
Okay.
So I covered states, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana. And I really didn't navigate too much outside of that. If events took place outside of that. So I didn't really get that exposure to where I could go to these national events. But now I'm assuming a different role at JCI. So I'm kind of helping with some of the product innovation. Look, so I get to go to these cool events now and like see what the whole market's doing. And like, I am a sprinkler nerd by trade. And like, I enjoy just being in the middle of it. So
the nightlife in Vegas, I haven't heard too much about it, but I'm assuming it's bed by 8:30.
I kind of wish. I mean, I'm
work. You got to be doing the responsible thing, right? You're there for work, professionalism.
I'm very thankful that I'm not so much heavy in the sales role anymore, because I was in the sales role. So you kind of end up going to those things and you don't know when the night's going to end.
Right.
But I am an old man. I was a contractor prior to this for 15 years.
Yep.
I came on board with Tyco, and I've been with Tyco for the past 4. So I'm an old man with kids, and I like my sleep. So
who doesn't?
Yeah. So Vegas, it's beautiful. There's a lot of fun stuff to do here. But the funny thing is, I don't think that I have stepped off that convention floor. Hardly anytime I can be in there whenever it's open, that seems to be where I'm at.
Anybody from JCI that's listening, that's the official word. And I'm not going to say any different.
Happens here, stays here, man.
So what we're here to talk about today is this thing right here, the 1-bolt coupling, the new 1-bolt from G Fire.
Yep. And it's actually it's a reiteration of a earlier launch that we did about 4 years ago.
Right.
Which great, hands down, reliable product as long as you did the proper training with it.
Okay.
I think our goal with our relaunch was we wanted to they'd been on the market for 4 years. We want to make some changes to it that fitters had kind of like said, hey, we want to make this more user friendly. And we also wanted to look at the issue of, well, Tyco rep might not always be in your face training you.
Right.
And so what's a product that we can put to market that requires no training whatsoever? And I like to use the word bulletproof.
Yeah. It seems pretty bulletproof. The thing I like about this one compared to your last iteration is the bolt is a little bit smaller, so it doesn't go out past the body of the coupling itself very much.
Yeah.
It was a huge, I'm exaggerating, but I think that other bolt was about this long.
And I really have to hand it to my engineering team. And honestly, JCI in general, the fact that we looked at what fitters were saying about the product and then we made the changes to make it better for fitters and for end users, it speaks volumes to the way that we do business. I really have to thank my engineers. It's funny, whenever they first brought me on this project, I kind of requested the beta testing data. I want to know, okay, so we beta test everything before we launch to market. Is there any way you could send me some of that test data? And they sent me a book about this thick. And basically what they did was, they did every trial, every test, and I was like, nobody's going to be installing this thing underwater. I don't understand why it's even in the test data, but they did. They tried to look at everything. They tried to factor in weather conditions, different regions, and how people install differently. And the amount of users that we used for beta testing was higher than any other product that we've come to market with prior. So it really speaks volumes to the hard work that went into this. With our engineering team, I can't thank them enough. Like, it was an amazing feat. And like, I'm an old fitter, so like, I'm their harshest critic whenever they put a product in my hands. The first iteration, I said a lot of things that the fitters got whenever they got the old one in hands, the things I didn't like about the.
Sure.
So just for visual purposes, I have an old version here.
Okay.
What I'm really going to focus on is the key differences.
Right. I just took it apart, so I got to put it back together before we compare.
So the key differences here are, one, hopefully you can see that or pick that up on the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Powder coated lubricant on the gasket material, which tried and true is great through the 90s. I speak ill of powder coated lubricants, but there's some susceptibility issues whenever you deal with powder coated lubricants. Things like wet weather.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is things that might have just gotten not considered on the original launch. Is like, you know what? You're not going to be delivering this product to a clean factory floor that's never going to get wet.
Right.
You're going to be delivering it to a building that has a roof on it that still hasn't been finished, and it's dripping water every time it rains.
Chances are nobody's going to be there to receive it. Your guy's going to throw it off the truck, and the fitters are going to get it the next day.
Yeah. So you got to make a product that can stand up through the weather. And that's one of the drawbacks of powder coated lubricant. When it gets wet, that powder coated lubricant can tend to degrade and wear off.
Yep.
I mean, luckily, whenever that does happen, the susceptibility really only happens at this point where it ships, which is the open part of the housing.
Right.
Because everything else is concealed and protected somewhat by the housing. But that is the most key vital point. One of the differences between our 1-bolt quick install coupling and everybody else on the market is this right here. Everybody always asks me, why does it look that way? And it's actually a 3-piece housing.
Right.
And we did that to eliminate possible pinch points. That was our goal. Whenever you bring this product together, you have 3 points of movement that take place. So you don't really have a true defined pinch point. What you do have is a friction point where that gasket is here.
Right.
And that's why I'm going to go back to talking about the training. I have guys who have used this since the first iteration. Loved it. They still use it today. But they're guys that I went out on a job site with and like walked them through the paces. And one of the big things I would always share with them is install it on your pipe and then rotate the housing a quarter of a turn. So what I do just there, I just moved powder coated gasket that had worn off to a new area where the powder coated gasket had been protected previously.
Right.
So like I kind of eliminated that problem, so I don't have that friction point there.
Yep.
I do that in training with a guy, no problem. Like they're going to install them. Another thing with powder coated lubricant or powder coated gaskets, that powder coat is susceptible in cold temperatures. So whenever you get to like 30 degrees, 35 degrees, you'll see on everybody's data sheet, especially the powder coated lubricants, that you have to add some sort of Vic lube or before install. A lot of people just think it's language that has to do with dry system installs.
Right.
It's not dry system.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
It's actually temperature based.
Okay.
Dealing with powder coated gaskets. And I think the reason you didn't see this problem in the 90s, whenever like the powder coat was really prevalent, is like the guys who are taking these things apart, like you're prepping them, and like they were all guys of the trade who'd been in it for 15 years, and they're going to lubricate the gasket anyway with thick lube. They got a camera truck. Like I'm already going through my process. So like I think that you didn't see that many issues with it in the past, but I think kind of as we're getting into this new age of more use whenever it comes to these quick install couplings, you're going to see a lot more problems if they're using a powder coated lubricant. So that was the major design difference that we made with the new product. We went to an impregnated gasket lubricant material.
Right.
Whenever you install this, it's actually inside the gasket itself. So whenever you put pressure on the gasket, it leaches out and it provides lubrication at the friction surface. So the house.
That's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because it feels like, I mean, it doesn't feel extremely greasy. It feels like there's a little bit of slick there, but
yeah,
it feels like it would be enough just to prevent it from binding. And I mean, I've been pinching this thing together since I've had the thing. It's, this is my stress relief right here.
Right? Yeah. If you take that thing apart and you start playing with it in your hands will start feeling greasy after a little while.
Yeah. Yep.
As you're using it to, so yeah, that's kind of how it works. Like, and the good thing about that is it's actually locked in. So all your lubricant material is locked in the gasket yourself. So all those weather conditions that we saw previously are greatly diminished. So I think that was a huge driver. We didn't have a ton of test data on it because most times stuff is installed and you can't get, but I was, what I felt like was a major contributor to people who had issues was weather and the powder coated lubricant.
Well,
while we're taking it, the thing that I love about our engineering team is, okay, we're going to go to this new gasket. Like, so what else can we do to improve the product? Like, let's get some feedback. And one of the things that people, fitters, the things we heard is, it just doesn't sound solid. Like, I don't like that it doesn't sound solid. I don't like that it feels a little loose and like it feels sloppy.
Yeah.
Which, man, you want to try to produce a product, and this is why I wanted to thank my engineers at the front end. You want to produce a product that fitters are like, to base it on fitter feel, like you're going off into the deep end, because like there's a lot of that's a high bar to hit.
To get
Really
fitter approval. I was going to say, if you're getting good fitter approval, so this is the new one, and it's
yeah,
a lot of rattle there.
Yeah, there's not a lot of rattle. There's also not a lot of like movement in the gasket. So the way we did that was we actually upsized the gasket. So the outside diameter is larger. So what that does, it actually forces the housing apart. What we realized during beta testing is it fixed another issue that I kind of recognize as a fitter, and some of the people that used it have recognized this right here. So you impact on it, and
the bolt.
So you go to install this on, and that bolt's in a lifted position.
Yep.
And then you go to turn it with the impact, and then you're like, what the heck? And then you have to readjust the bolt and pull it and then tighten it.
And then you pinch the gasket. Most of the time, if that happens, a little minor adjusting causes a pinched gasket as well. Yeah.
So now it's pushed apart, like by that gasket forcing it apart. So like we kind of fixed two things that like this were just like, it's just added benefit. But like, I feel like it's a big thing. There's nothing that annoyed me more than whenever I'd hit a quick install coupling with my impact, and it would just turn in place. Like it was one of the worst things. Like, it's just annoying. It's just that little annoyance.
Little things that drive guys
a day.
How has the response been? You said that these have been out and the beta testing's been out there and things like that, but how has the response been from a fitter standpoint as far as getting them installed and stuff like that? How has it been with getting them out there?
So from the beta testing standpoint, the results of it, they were honestly absolutely stellar. It is probably better than the majority of things that you see on a beta test, just because anytime you put new technology in a fitter's hands, they're your harshest critics.
Yeah.
Like they are. And like they're the most important people in this, is like
change. They don't like
really,
fitters do not like change.
Yeah. And trying to get their buy off on anything that looks, and just the fact that it looks different, like unless you explain, hey, this is why we're looking at this design, then like they'll be like, I don't want to use it because it looks different. So but our feedback after installation, like it was absolutely stellar, hands down. We had, I think it was close to, well, I'm not sure if I can share this information, but I'll share it and then we'll check. We had close to
Wow.
installed.
Okay, so if you're not allowed to share that, I'll edit it, and then this will be, we weren't allowed to share that part, so we're going to continue on with the conversation.
Yeah.
That was my.
So we had quite a few units installed, and we only had incidents in 3 cases across the country, and they were all. We only had one that was just kind of like we really couldn't figure out the issue with it, which is normal. I mean, and then we had 2 that were contributed to bad groove ends.
Oh, so not
groove ends, or not coupling related.
Hmm.
So the performance of the product was absolutely hands down amazing through the beta testing trials. So with that, I'm super excited to take it to market, because and after I put it in my hands, I'm really stoked about this. Like, I really feel like it is 1,000% bulletproof.
It feels like a good product. Feels like a solid product. It's heavy, but it's not too heavy. Like, I mean, if you can't lift what do I got? A 2.5-inch coupling here?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the weight gets any 6-inch coupling or something like that's going to be a little bit heavier. It's got a little bit more steel than a typical coupling, but I mean, if you're fatigued from installing couplings all day.
So one of the things I do want to talk about is okay, so what are the benefits of going to quick coupling technology?
What would the benefits be? Not even quick coupling in general, but why are people switching from a 2-bolt quick coupling to a 1-bolt quick coupling? What are the benefits of that?
So I'm really not certain what the benefit is from switching from a traditional 2-bolt to a 1-bolt coupling, other than incremental time savings. And it's honestly time savings that would probably be hard to collect data on. I mean, I'm sure somebody out there has, the manufacturers must have before they launched. But I think the big thing with quick coupling technology is that you can take the product, and that's what our goal in our original launch is. We weren't looking for a 1-bolt necessarily at that point, because there were no 1-bolts on the market.
Right.
And there were no 1-bolt ready install couplings on the market. So we were just looking for a way to create a quick coupling. And the benefits of quick couplings, the real true benefits, are you can pull it directly out of the factory sealed box after you put it on your lift, and you can install it immediately with an impact wrench. You take out all the prep work. Right. Another thing that doesn't get considered, and then the thing that actually made me switch whenever I was a contractor from the old style to the quick installs, was material loss on large warehouse installs.
I lost one nut. I lost one half of the shell. I lost a bolt.
Yeah. And like, whenever you're working 35 feet in the air and you're doing it over and over and over again, you end up dropping a nut. And what happens is that fitter who's on the lift, he's not gonna like put that to the side and fix it on the job site later. He's gonna pull the next one out of the box.
That's right.
The job, you're gonna have 15 to, and this is what changed me. I was a warehouse installer, and we had a 62 system warehouse, and at the end of it, we went to clean up.
Just a little.
I had 2 pallets of coupling parts, and it was all related to a nut getting dropped. And I was able to make those parts into full assemblies, like at our shop with the use of our shop guy. So like, we ended up like recouping some of that loss back, but I still bought the coupling twice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where the real savings happens. Like,
yeah,
I don't like talking about the time savings, because there is prep time savings, but in certain labor markets that like there's people out there where the labor rate is not driving where the savings can be proven.
Right.
What I can prove is you won't buy the coupling twice, because on a 62 system ESFR warehouse, because your fitters drop nuts and bolts from a lift.
Right. And that is where the cost savings come in, the material cost savings, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I like to focus on, because that's what changed me over. And I was an early adopter of the original quick install couplings, who had kind of a bad experience with it. And I had been off of them for 6 or 7 years.
Mhm.
And all it took was just a manufacturer coming and being persistent. And then he happened to come over to my warehouse with me on our way to lunch. And he saw the 2 pallets of couplings. He said, "How much do you think that cost you?" I'm a numbers guy, so I actually went back to the books and I looked and I saw how much it cost me. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I really got to consider this for my warehouse installs."
Yeah. And they do.
And then I gave it another shot, and like they kind of did like we did. Like they went to market, and then you have to make adjustments after it gets used in the field. And that by that time, whenever I started using the product, it was a solid product. So like they converted me, and like, but what adopted me, it wasn't like, what am I going to save in labor on prep work? It was the material loss that was the overall driving factor, and just the speed of install from being able to pull out a factory sealed box and put it on the pipe and tighten down with an impact wrench.
Absolutely. I mean, it all snowballs, right? It all snowballs. Cost savings are cost savings, no matter which way you look at it. Now, we've talked a lot about the good things about them. Are you getting a lot of negative feedback? I'm always a guy that asks about negative feedback. What kind of negatives are you getting from the industry? I'm sure there's old fitters in the field who just stopped unthreading pipe a week ago and are getting used to their regular couplings that they're greasing up. What are the negatives you're seeing with these?
Well, if we're going to talk about negative feedbacks, some of the things I have a lot of fitters bring up is, well, you guys have a torque recommendation on your data sheets.
Right.
And the funny thing is, it's not required for us to put that torque recommendation on there at all. It really isn't. We just do it because kind of a change in the marketplace with impact technology.
Oh yeah.
The impact technology is improving at a pace that is something that fire protection contractors honestly don't need.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No.
When I was out in the field, when impacts first became a thing, the quarter drive impacts, the ones with the adapters, like they would hardly take off your car tire. Like if you needed it, they just weren't super powerful and they weren't super fast. And I know that one manufacturer of impact tools had a 30% torque improvement in a year. And whenever you look at things like that, we're looking at potential problems for our industry because you're going to have a lot more people cracking couplings and things like that.
Snapping ears off couplings.
So we put those recommendations on the data sheets, kind of so that people have a guide so they can say, okay, like if I'm going to choose an impact wrench, what impact wrench do I want to use? And what ends up, if they use it like that as a tool, and they say, okay, well, I'm going to switch to, because a lot of fitters interpret it as, oh, I need a torque wrench for installing this in the head. It's not what it's there for. It's there so that you have some sort of guide or like broad base so that you can choose your tool.
Yeah, that same fitter though who comments on that, I guarantee you doesn't torque a sprinklers installation, but they're all supposed to be torqued between 7 and 14 foot-pounds, right?
Yeah, and it really just comes down to, we did it so that the contractors have a guidebook, because there are variable speed impacts where you can say, okay, if I'm installing a 4-inch coupling, this is the torque that I need, and I can kick to this speed. Or if I'm installing a smaller, then I can kick to this speed.
Right.
And we just want to empower that. The reason for us putting it on the data sheet was for people to empower them so they can make smart decisions. But a lot of that you can't convey that message on a data sheet. If you tried, all of our data sheets would
come on the podcast. You can do a lot of stuff on a 2-page document, but we've been talking for a half an hour already, and you can give a lot of information.
So I get that negative feedback. The other negative feedback I get is, why does it look different? Like, why does it look that way? Because it does not look like a traditional coupling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're like, I don't understand. Like, and the reasoning for that is, and whenever you have a 1-bolt technology, you have to think about possible pinch points.
Right.
And what this does by adding to 3 pieces, you actually have 3 points of movement whenever you're tightening it down. And this is another thing I love about our product. You can actually squeeze it together by hand.
I've been doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's not a lot of couplings on the market where you can do that and squeeze it together by hand. And I do like that. I just said that just because I was doing it while I was holding it. But points of movement allow to reduce the hinge points, and that was the goal with going to this style. And what that does is those hinge points, they don't really play a factor whenever you're looking at the smaller sizes. Like whenever you're at like 1.25 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, you don't really have to worry about the pinch point on that side. Whenever you get into larger size, like the 2.5 and up, and right now we're working on beta testing for our larger size. The new 579A, currently it's only going to be carried through 3 inch.
Okay.
But the larger sizes, once you start moving up, it is nearly impossible because you got a lot more gasket material. You're trying to work around that pinch point problem.
Sure. Yeah.
This seems to be the best solution whenever you get to those larger, and that's why we had to go to this Space Invaders.
Yeah, that does, eh?
But the other things that people complained about on the initial launch that we've already fixed prior to this launch was the nuts. You have to always make sure you have a Loctite or something like that that keeps that from backing off.
Yep.
We have a strip of Loctite there so it doesn't back off.
Yep.
Still have that adjustment, so if you ever need to get to the max flare allowed per spec, you can back it out.
Yeah, I've been playing with mine for like 2 months now. It's been sitting on my desk, so my Loctite's worn off. Well,
yeah, but it holds that nut in place.
Absolutely, yeah. It still gives you a little bit of restriction there. Like you can't just back the thing off; it stops it. Yep.
And then you brought up another big point. Like people are like, why that bolt's so long? And well, whenever you're doing a 1 bolt in the open position, you have to make the bolt a little bit longer. And what's really important is that you're not creating a new footprint.
Right.
And it's matching up with the opposite side of the housing. You're not adding footprint space.
Yeah, because you can add this thing, you can slide it in for a retrofit, you can get it in a pretty tight spot. But if you now have a bolt that hangs out an extra inch past your coupling, all the savings are gone.
And what I do like about this with that flat back
Mhm.
is you have to run a pipe right up next to ductwork in like a hallway or something. You have that option.
Yeah, or on the vertical.
Against a typical 2 bolt.
You can get on the vertical right up against a wall too.
Mm-hmm. And I don't have any pictures on me, but if you've ever tried to install a quick coupling after coming directly off of a short radius 90, like say like the feed coming into the building, you want to run a short radius 90, you can't catch 2 bolts on that.
They go on an angle. Yeah.
The only product that will work to do that short radius 90 on a flange gasket adapter to the feed is this one that I've seen.
Right.
This or a traditional 2 bolt.
Right.
Or actually, no, I don't even think traditional 2 bolts. I think you still have a long radius.
2 bolt. Yeah, they'll be on
Yeah.
on the angle.
So like,
Touch.
and I know I'm just trying to visualize that. It's probably difficult, but this does give you a lot of flexibility with the flat back.
It's an interesting concept, and I'll be curious to see how the industry as a whole kind of jumps on board with it, or and it sounds like people are taking it and people are running with it from from service to because you guys have had some ideas that maybe didn't rock it out of the park, but this one here, I think this is a good one for the groove market. I think this is better than the ready install coupling or ready install fittings by far.
Yeah, and this is such a great thing that we went back to this because the rapid install head, the hand tight storage sprinkler heads,
yes,
also hands down, like it had one of the best product launches we've ever had. And having this on the back end, because the places I see people using quick install couplings is, like I just said, large warehouse facilities where like that prep work does save you time.
Yep.
Like if you're making 90-degree turns every 20 feet, like it's still nice to just be able to pull something out of a box, but like where you're really going to see that labor savings, like where like, oh, the install took me a lot less time, is on those large warehouse grids. Like, and so the fact that we have 2 products that we launched, they're so great within a short time span. Like I'm just glad we're able to go to market with a full solution for people.
Yeah.
Eat that niche.
Nick, I know you're in Vegas. I'm not going to take any more of your time there. Do me a solid, go down to the roulette, put one on 19 and one on 14 and number 9. And if you win or big, I'll split it with you.
Sounds good, buddy.
There you go. Just in time for my camera to shut off. Nick, sorry I couldn't be there in Vegas to do this in person. Always have a pleasure talking to you. We always have a good time. We always talk for hours. Thanks for coming on the podcast and talking about the new G-Fire 1-bolt coupling.
Thank you, buddy.
We'll talk to you.